For decades, India has been in this really tough fight against child labor. But here's the thing, their strategy isn't just about punishment. It's this super interesting two-sided approach that mixes strict laws with something way more powerful, education. Let's break down how it all works.
And that really brings up the big question, right? When you're facing a problem that's as deep-rooted as child labor, where do you even start? Do you just slap on stricter rules, or is there a better way?
Well, India's answer is this powerful two-pronged approach. I like to think of it as a stick and carrot strategy. The stick, that's the force of the law, prohibition. And the carrot is the power of knowledge, education. Let's see how they fit together. All right, so first up, let's talk about the stick, the legal firewall. The absolute cornerstone here is the Child Labor Act of 1986. This was a landmark piece of legislation really designed to put a stop to the practice. So the goal of this act was actually super clear, and pretty smart too. See, they knew a total ban on all child work just wasn't going to work. It was impractical. Instead, they did a targeted strike, completely ban kids from dangerous jobs, but for everything else, strictly regulate their working conditions. And this is where you really see how the act works in two ways. On one side, it created an absolute no-go zone, listing out all these specific hazardous jobs that were totally off limits for children. But on the other side, for work that was allowed, it wasn't just a free-for-all. It laid down strict rules for things like working hours and safety. Okay, but for a law like this to work, you've got to be super clear on one thing. Who exactly is a child? The act is very specific. It's anyone who has not yet turned 14. That age cutoff is absolutely fundamental to how the entire law is enforced. A law without consequences is really just a suggestion. So how did they make sure this act actually had some teeth? Well, through some very clear enforcement and some serious penalties for anyone who broke the rules. The penalties for employers were designed to be a huge deterrent. We're talking not just big fines, but the real possibility of going to jail. This was not a slap on the wrist. It was a loud and clear message that exploiting child labor was not going to be tolerated anymore. All right, so that's the legal side of things, the reactive part, right? Punishing people who break the rules. But, and this is a big but, laws often just treat the symptoms, not the actual cause. This is only half the story. And that brings us to a really critical question, doesn't it? Is just punishing people enough to change the mindsets and the economic problems that lead to child labor in the first place? I mean, can you really solve a deep social problem just by making it illegal? And that is where the second part of India's strategy comes in. This is the proactive side of things, the carrot, the worker education scheme. It's all built on the idea that preventing the problem is way better than punishing it after the fact. And the whole mindset here is completely different. Instead of just policing employers from the top, the goal was to build a defense from the ground up. The idea? Empower the workers themselves. Educate them on their rights, and turn them into the first line of defense against child labor. And what's really cool is who they got involved. As you can see, this isn't just the government calling all the shots. The Central Board for Workers' Education brings unions, employers, and educators to the same table as government officials. It's a brilliant move to make sure everyone is on board. Now, this focus on education wasn't just some flash-in-the-pan idea. It was actually woven into the very fabric of the nation's long-term plans, which shows a really deep, lasting commitment to the idea. And this timeline, man, it really drives that point home. You can see how worker education started as a key priority, then got expanded into more industries, and later was beefed up with specific lessons on worker rights. This was never an afterthought. It was a core piece of the national strategy for decades. And this quote just perfectly sums up the whole ambition. The goal isn't just to get people to follow the rules. It's about a total culture shift, creating an educated workforce that polices itself, rejecting child labor not just because it's illegal, but because they understand it's just plain wrong. So here we are, back where we started. We've seen the stick of the law and the carrot of education. But when economic pressures are sky high, can education really win out over desperation? India's strategy bets that you need both. But it still leaves you wondering, which one is the true engine of social change? What do you think?